I've just opened this rs.doc file. It could equally be a step file. If you were inspecting this file, you may want to first of all do a geometry check on the file just to make sure that the geometry has no obvious errors. And to do that over the whole file, just right click, check geometry. No geometry problems were found. That's good. And you may now wish to declutter the screen, so we can do this in many ways. First of all, let's see what we have on the layers. So I'm going to turn off the plane, origin and fasteners. So using the standard Windows selection techniques, I can just select the layers either one by one or control click them. You can now turn them off or all on. As shown, let's turn them off now. Another way is to select the layer, hide others. And another way to only show what you're interested in is to right click on a face, then select hide others. And lastly, if we go to the filter command, we have a smart selection, but under that bodies is not selected, so unclick smart, click bodies, that's just a manual selection, box select, 16 threaded bodies and 19 bodies selected, right click, hide others. What you can also do is right click, locate in structure tree. This expands the tree and highlights the selected bodies. And if you select any body now, right click, hide others. And now that just shows your single body. The user selection only applies to the current command. If I now change to pull, you will see the selection filter reverts back to smart. If I want to go back to the user selection again, I would just uncheck the smart. And if I now move to move, for instance, again it reverts back to smart. For basic measuring without invoking the measure command, you can simply select a model edge to another model edge. And if a distance is shown, then you know that these two edges are parallel. It's the same for faces. A distance of 12.75, so the faces must be parallel. You can select any two faces and get an angle measurement between them. Any two faces and get a distance measurement between them. Thus, you know they are parallel to one another. A radius dimension, another radius dimension. Equally, you can select the counterbores, and you have a distance. You can select this is a drilled hole and then the counterbore, and you'll get an offset between them. You can select any two holes, so let's say this counterbore and this hole here, and you have a distance between them. Again, so this would be just the shortest distance, the minimum distance between those two axes. Now, because this was done in standard select mode, any noted distance always means the objects are parallel. You have to note that in standard select mode, the features that you're measuring have to be the same. So I can measure this face, and let's just select the other face, and I get a parallel distance of 50.5. But if I select this curve face and this face, I don't get any sort of dimensional feedback between the two because they are dissimilar. Same with curve edges as well, so an edge to a straight edge, nothing, but a curved edge to another curved edge and an offset distance, offset of -2. So it's a very quick way to establish distances between features without the need to invoke a measure command. Just to quickly show you what happens if the geometry is slightly inaccurate. If I move this counter bore and let's give it just a very small rotation, let's say 0.01 degrees, like so. And I now try to measure, unlike this counter bore, where I can just select this and this, rather select this and this. I get a distance, but over here, if I did the same thing, I no longer returns any result. Similarly, if I tried to measure between two, again, it no longer returns a measurement result. It also would show that this was no longer a radius, it now has a length. And if I measure actually between the axis of the counterbore, which is here, and a known other good axis, which is here, you can see it has an angle of 179.99. Let me undo. And now if I just select the two faces, it returns the measurement. Sometimes you do need to be careful. For instance, if I move this face, let's move this face 1 micron. And now I measure between these two curves. It will have a distance not of the offset, which was 2 millimeters, but now it has an offset of 1 micron. So that is something you have to be aware of. In this case, meaning although the axis of the holes are parallel, they are offset by 1 micron. So if we now consider just this plate, but perhaps we want to show some more qualified measuring information, I'm just firstly going to show everything on in terms of what we've got for this particular item. Okay, so we turn off the full assembly, turn it back on, and we have everything on. Let's ensure that we only have the correct part as active. We will right click, activate component. We'll right click again, show only, hide others rather. I will now turn all of that plate on and all off, and I'll expand it so I can see all my threads and my plane and my origin I've already got there. Now these are not actually needed, so I'm actually going to turn off planes and turn off origins. That's fine. Now at the moment, if I go into the measure command, measure, I can use a origin as a basis for a measurement output. If I select this, what happens first of all is that the world origin always shows, but at this time I could actually choose another origin. It actually says I can choose an axis or a line, but to make another origin where you want it to be, you can go about this in a couple of ways. You could, for instance, if you were maybe wanting measurements for NC machining and you perhaps have got this part in a vise, you could select this plane and another plane, and then if you go into the origin mode with those three faces selected, you can then make an origin, and then that puts an origin at the intersection of those three planes. I'm going to undo that, and this time what I'm going to choose is I'm going to choose this face as the origin center. And now an origin is placed underneath the active component and in the exactly where I want numerical output to come from. What I'm going to do is I'm going to now just select that and select V. And I'm also going to show another viewport. So I'm going up here in my quick access toolpath. I've got 1, 2 horizontal, 2 vertical, or 4. I'm going to choose 2 horizontal views. And now I'm just going to go back into the measure command. I could choose the letter E for that, shortcut E. And I'm going to choose a nominated origin. And there I have it. It's all highlighted. That's fine. And now when I go to any object which my cursor will pick up on, you can see I get these coordinates from the center point, which is very good. Something which I must point out to you is the vertex position of holes only shows when you're in the measure command. So if I quickly use my shortcut E to get to the measure command, now when I go over any arc, I will get a center point showing. It's probably easier to see in line mode, so let me go into hidden line mode. Now when I go over any arc, there you can see the center point showing up. And it's only in the measure command does this center point show. It can then be selected, and when you select it will say, or even prior to selection, it will say vertex at the bottom of the screen. Just press once, go to another one, press again, and you get the distance of 4 millimeters between two vertices. Vertices do show, however, in other operations such as move and pull. And with regards to objects which can be easily selected, we have a selection filter. Now at the moment it's on Smart, and to see what is actually under Smart, if I select this small little drop down arrow, you can see it changing to blue color. You can see that my Smart menu is going to pick up all of these objects, faces, edges, sketch curves, etc., etc., but bodies have not been selected. If I don't want my Smart, I can unclick Smart, and now what I've got is my edges and my vertices selected. This is just a manual selection. So from here now, if I now move into the graphics area, if I move over an edge, faces will pick up, but the actual face itself, whilst within, or rather over the face, it won't show. Now there's something else I want to show you. If I change the display from solid mode to maybe go to one of the line modes, and I'm going to choose a hidden line mode, this one. Because I've now got a selection of, as I said, edges and vertices, what that means is that only edges and vertices will actually be selected. Obviously, as I said, if you pass over an edge, you get the adjacent faces slightly highlighted, but once you get over that boundary, then that doesn't happen anymore. Now, because I've chosen, or rather I will now choose measure, the vertex of any edge, circular edge, is now displayed. And what's also quite useful and of high productivity, I think, is in this particular mode, you can actually scan, or rather automatically select objects which are not actually on top of the model. So these holes, they're in dim lined, are actually underneath the model. This recessed pocket here is underneath the model, and you can see it highlighting in the other window. I'll show again. There you are. So you can actually get to these centers of these holes for measurements. Let's choose this again. So here as you can see, and this makes the measurement of these points extremely fast. I did edges, so I can do vertices as well. There's a vertex, and in the lower view there you can see it's highlighted, but let me do that again. I'm going to use there. So this makes for a very fast analysis and feedback of information for measuring scores possible. Something else I want to point out, if I now go to this point, so let's click off and I go to this point, you can see it highlighted in this view. But if I go to this view here and now I select, but I actually use the up-down arrows, it actually drives the selection through the model, and as you can see, it picks up on there. It's picking up on the cone of a counter drill applied to the top of the thread, and there it's moved to the inner diameter of the thread, the outer diameter of the thread, the top of the countersink, and now the top of the hole, and now the actual top. I'm going to zoom in here. You can see that line. Let me go back to this again. There's two ways you can drive the selection through the model. You can either hold down the control key, move the middle mouse wheel forward backwards, or alternatively you can press the up down arrow keys, which does the same thing. So this is very useful to understand exactly where you are and exactly what you're measuring within the model. To give you a quick tip with the manipulation of these windows, what's required is for your mouse pointer to be actually in between the two lines of the two horizontal windows. Then select and drag to resize the window. The active view is always shown by an orange border within it. Just click in another window to activate it. Any view commands, face commands, zoom commands only apply to the active window, and window split displays can be changed at any time through the display mode. Or if you have them in the quick access toolbar, it's probably quicker to do it there. If that's the active one, I can change back to one single display, all very efficiently.